Hey everyone, this is Mark Ryan coming at you with another video, and today I have Pastor David Clayson. He's a pastor out in North Dakota, and we're talking about religious liberty and the pandemic. Hey, right now there's churches being told you may not meet indoors whatsoever, and not only that, you may not sing, you may not do communion because that it could spread the virus. And so as Christians, how do we handle that? How do we wrestle through that? We don't want anyone to get sick. We don't want anyone to die. This is a real virus. It's killed hundreds of thousands of people in the United States. Worldwide, I'm guessing it's probably in a million plus worldwide. And so we don't want anyone to get hurt. How do we wrestle through, still gathering as Christians and still preaching the gospel, still reaching people, and yet not doing it in a way so that people don't get hurt or dying? And then beyond that, just my thought is, hey, pray for your pastor. There's people that'll get upset. Hey, you're following guidelines. I'm upset. Hey, you're not following guidelines. I'm upset. And it's almost a lose-lose situation because people get upset either way. And so pastors, the elders of the church, they have to make tough decisions. They don't want anyone to get sick. They don't want anyone to die. And yet at the same time, they still want the kingdom of God to move forward and for the gospel to be preached and reach people. And so we have to make tough decisions, and we can't run from them. We can't just hope, hey, maybe this will all go away. It's not going away anytime soon. We have to talk about it. We have to bring grace and love and encouragement and support and have this conversation. We can't just run and hide from it and hope it goes away. But with that, hey, let's dive in and get started.
Give us some men who know the truth.
Really the big thing, the main thing that I wanted to talk about, and that is John MacArthur's church. He's a mega church pastor, a pretty famous one down in California. And he's maybe one of the only mega church pastors that I know of, at least, who has kept meeting throughout the pandemic. He stopped initially for weeks, for 2 weeks, and then just streaming it to an empty church basically, but people kept coming and coming back.
Yeah.
And then there's more and more and more, and eventually he said, hey, we have, God commands us to gather and have church, and we're going to do it. But these are the different regulations that the county, I guess, or the city, I'm not sure which one, but the city or the county came at him with. And he would be in, I believe it's Los Angeles, in one of the just more populated areas for sure, that has some of the more strict regulations. But here's some of the different ones, and I just thought I'd get your thoughts on it and everything. The first rule, there was a court order basically, and they say, hey, John MacArthur, you can have church, but you need to follow these different things. And here's the first rule that the court ordered, and it is number one: no indoor church meetings whatsoever. What do you think of that?
I don't know. I feel like that violates freedom of religion, that First Amendment.
Yeah,
It's, I don't know, because again, you got chapters in the Bible, like Romans 13, where you don't have to fear the government if you aren't doing anything evil. So you have that where you're supposed to listen to the government, but then you have other scriptures like what he quoted there, where we are supposed to meet, that we're supposed to come together in fellowship, and that fellowship is an important aspect of Christianity. And I guess, who said this? This is a WAD home. You weren't there for the WAD homes, I don't think. It was senior, not the junior, not the
okay, yeah,
senior WAD. I shouldn't be laying them out like this, but they told me before, so this was 2013, 14. He was like, I think in our lifetime we're going to have to move to house churches in the United States. That's what he said. And when we look at everything that's going on, that's seeming like it's a lot closer than like our retirement age type of thing. Like it's gonna be a lot sooner than that.
Well, and this is kind of a rabbit trail, but when you get into more authoritarian governments with communism or with socialism, ones that just say, hey, do as you're told, you basically have a state church, and then you have the underground church.
Yeah.
And like with communist China during the COVID-19 pandemic, you had Xi Jinping, who's their president over there, their dictator, and he basically said no church. And then when he let them start meeting again, they had to sing praises to Xi Jinping and kind of worship him basically for protecting him during the virus, during the pandemic. Well, as Christians, like, we can't do that. And so we're not going to be part of the state church. So you have an underground church that meets and they say, hey, we can't worship Xi Jinping. We can't follow.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ is the head of the church, not, the Chinese president. And so you have Christians really that have to make those decisions even, whereas we haven't even had to think through this really in the United States for a long time because of the First Amendment, and it's been really respected.
Yep.
Here's the second one: pre-registration of every single person who comes onto church property. I mean, this is a real rule for a real church through a real court. And but a year ago, this would have, I think anyone would have said, hey, this is insane. This is absolutely insane. But now we're here. We're at these times and everything. And it's health and safety. I mean, that's like if you don't follow these, you're putting people in danger. You're putting people at risk. So it's.
Yeah. I had a thought here, kind of rabbit trailing it, but let's say all of a sudden tomorrow we wake up and all the regulations that are in communist China are put onto the United States. You are instantly going to have pastors be imprisoned. So there's that. And if that were to happen, then all of a sudden that shepherding would fall on the congregation. If these pastors are actually sticking to their faith, even if they weren't, like, just because they're a pastor of the church, and it's easy to figure out who's the pastor of what church, the government would be able to easily figure that out. They'd probably throw them in prison just because of that, I would feel like. And so then it would fall to the congregation. And so when you go to recording who's in the congregation, in that sense, it would not be a good thing, if we turn the congregation tomorrow, because then all of a sudden the church is having to disperse or separate and stuff. And that's not the first time in the history of the church that the church has had to disperse or had to do these underground type churches before either. Here's a thought.
Yeah. So you're saying, though, let me break in real quick, is that we could see kind of churches, a different area of churches then, where instead of just meeting publicly, and we have these big churches with thousands, or hundreds even, we could see just more home church, small gatherings. How church looks, it could be different in the future. But then I would say too, though, you'll still see in America, a state church that complies with all of the state, with the federal regulations and all that. We'll see that for sure. I don't think anyone could really speak otherwise. But then you'll see Christians who will say, no, we can't do that. And
the home churches. And then you'll have a bunch of full-time pastors that will all of a sudden, like myself, will all of a sudden have to seek secular jobs, as well as having those services outside their home or out of their home and stuff like that too. It'd be a big change, I think. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if we want to go down this. What's your next thing? I don't want to.
Well, what were you going to say? Yeah. You could say
I've preached last Sunday at the Presbyterian church and then at our church the week before or something like that, that some persecution for the American church would not be a bad thing.
Yeah.
Because I think it would shake some people up and really get them thinking about if they truly believe in God, or if they truly want to serve God or not. And if your freedom is at risk, or even your life is at risk, it really gets you like, okay, do I really believe what the Bible says, or do I really serve God? Or, I think I say that and that's only like a sliver of what I believe. I like our religious freedom. I like being able to meet together and stuff like that. But at the same time, I know that there's a lot of fake Christians in today's church that need that shaking up, that waking up to realize, hey, I'm not really right with God. Do I want to get right with him, or do I want to fall away and not risk this stuff?
Being a Christian would cost you something. And when when it costs you something to follow Christ, then, a lot of people say, hey, no, thanks. And we'll see, people who are on the fence, they'll have to choose, either way. Um, Here's the next regulation they have to follow, rule they have to follow.
Okay.
People only allowed on church property for scheduled events. That's the third thing. Fourth thing, every person who comes on church property must be screened. And that one, you could see something like that. That seems pretty reasonable.
Yeah.
A lot of, businesses, a lot of like my workplace, we have to be screened and everything, or we
Yeah.
should be if
Yeah.
we're following the rules and everything. And yet at the same time, is that something the government could say churches, hey, you have to do this? Or is that something that churches should just take upon themselves and everything? And then there's, a lot of churches that say, no, we're not going to even do that.
Mm-hmm. I
What if the
I don't
next
know.
what if the next administration, the Biden-Harris administration, they come in and say, hey, if you're going to church, everyone has to be screened, their temperature taken, that kind of stuff. Should churches comply with that?
I think the question to ask is, what is the tipping point to where you will stop obeying what the government mandates? I think for there, I could justify that as long as we're not recording it each week. Like, okay, you're fine. Go ahead, go in, but we're not gonna, you know what I mean? Like, okay, this is their temperature so that we have it on record or something like that.
Yeah.
I think you have to ask, what is a tipping point though? What is too much?
And as we
And
read
that
through,
even that would make me uncomfortable. The screening. Do you know, did that church do that? Or are they doing that or what?
so they had won some court battles and everything, and then one of their hearings, the judge said, hey, just wear masks, do some certain things, some basic things, and they said, yeah, okay, all right, we'll do it. Well, then the county or the city, they filed they came at them through the courts again, and this time they lost that battle. Well, then they just said, hey, we're not doing any of it, we're having church, we're going to meet and all that. And so then they're not really they're not asking their congregation members or anything to follow the guidelines and all that. Personal responsibility, but yeah.
So are they paying fines then each time or what?
My understanding is that the health department visits them, and it's interesting because I've heard that the health workers, they really hate the rules. They think they're egregious and everything, but several of them are Christians, and even the one that goes to John MacArthur's church is a Christian. And so, they'll go to the service actually, and then, oh, hey, we have to fine you $5,000 or however much money for singing or for whatever you did, or for meeting whatever rule that they broke. And then, it's weird because they're Christians, or, some of them.
Yeah.
And they're put in that weird situation too. And so that's even a thing that Christians have to think too. If I'm a Christian in the health department and I'm ordered, hey, you've got to find a church because they're singing, and health mandates say, hey, you can't sing because that could spread COVID.
Yeah.
Can I fine a church for that? And if I don't, I could lose my job. There could be ramifications there. Thoughts on that?
Well, the church is the body of Christ. So if you're fining the church, you're fining God, essentially. I don't know if you want to do that or not. I wouldn't. I would. Again, I would never be put in that situation because I'm not a health official or anything like that. But I don't think I would. I would be like, I'd lose my job. I'd choose to lose my job, I think, over finding a church.
Something like that. Yeah.
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 I think for me, like the way that we're operating right now, again, we're in a rural community. So it's a little bit different for us. We're off in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, it's going to be Montana right now. It's going to be North Dakota right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel for me, like my goal right now is just to give them give the congregation members the option of whether they want to come or not. And if you cancel services, you're not giving them the option. You're telling them, okay, you can't come if you cancel. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so because of that, I said last Sunday, we're taking this week by week with COVID. As of right now, we're going to continue meeting. If you're not comfortable enough to meet with us in person, then, we have this online service on Facebook that you can tune in on and watch and join us in that way. But for now, we're going to keep on meeting, is what I said last Sunday. It's because that, I mean, give the option to the congregation members. If they feel safe enough to come, let them come. If they don't feel safe enough to come, then they don't have to come. But I don't feel like you should take away that option from those. Like if you don't feel safe enough to come, that you prevent someone else for coming. You know what I mean? I don't think you should do that. So.
Yeah. Well, right now, North Dakota, Montana, we're probably at our peak right now for cases.
Yeah.
Because we're kind of behind the rest of the United States and everything.
And we actually, I know for North Dakota, they did, they implemented these levels. And so for these levels, depending on your county, on what level it was at, that was how much people are allowed in a building or something like that. So for example, I think right now we're in the red level. So we're only allowed either 25% or 50% capacity of a room. And then there are other counties that are allowed like 80 or whatever, just because they're less. And there's others that are only allowed.
So it goes by active cases and everything.
Yeah.
Right? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll keep going. The fifth regulation, hey, you've got to maintain 6 feet of social distance at all times, everywhere, including parking lots and bathrooms. So if you're parking in the parking lot, no one to the left of you, no one to the right of you directly or behind you.
Yeah.
Maybe diagonally, I don't know, but that cuts down your capacity just by so much. And every other parking space must be vacant. Just said that. Mark pathways to maintain social distance. There's 7th regular.
I'm glad I'm not living in California.
Their 8th one, pathway monitors to ensure people stay in the pathways. So they're like really micromanaging, really. And I think that's part of where John MacArthur just said, hey, go pound sand. We're having church. Jesus Christ is the head of the church, and you implementing all these different things. And it gets more intrusive. We'll see here in a second, where it's just deal breaker after deal breaker after deal breaker, in my opinion, at least.
Yeah.
And then it says bathroom monitors to ensure social distancing in the bathrooms, even. Whoa. Everyone always wearing a mask at all times whenever you're in there.
Yeah.
Okay. And that goes back to, then you have the health department there. And if they see someone without a mask, and that church has 3,000 members there, and it goes up because people across the nation heard about it. And so they go to church there. But if you're the health department, you see some people without a mask, man, that could be a fine as well. There's tape on ground marking social distance. They have to do that. Then the court said, hey, you've got to put signs in your church indicating all these mandates. And it was 25 mandates from the court. I'm guessing these are county mandates and everything.